Greetings in the name of Jesus. How many of you have sung these words? I'm standing here only because you made a way. Or how about Waymaker, Promise Keeper, Light in the Darkness? We can all agree that were it not for God's hand over our lives, we wouldn't be here today. How many times did God spare your life? Reflecting on my life, I've often found myself in precarious situations, sometimes unaware of the battles I was unwittingly engaged in, particularly during my youth. We trusted people and discovered that people closest to us posed the most danger. A sobering reminder that misplaced trust can lead to betrayal. What about when we prayed for things and situations to change in our favor and they didn't? In hindsight, we thank God that some of our prayers went unanswered, as our life now surpasses even the best plans we had. Our dreams pale in comparison to the remarkable path that God has laid out for us. Even in the face of adversity, God's plan consistently outshines our plan. Today, I want to talk about the altars of remembrance. Have you ever spoken to someone so overwhelmed that God answered their prayer, or experienced something supernatural, like healing from an incurable disease? Have you noticed how awestruck and emotional their disposition was? Consider that person a few months or years later. How has their disposition changed? I have observed that people are quick to thank God for answering prayers, and rightly so, but people are equally quick to forget the works of God in their lives. We can easily say we are standing here because God made a way. But more often than not, we cannot remember most of what God did for us. Prayer requests are a dime a dozen. Just speak to professing Christians. Prayers are answered daily, and new requests are made. It's a continuous circle of ongoing prayer requests. We set up departments to manage these prayer requests. I know because I have done this. We have even set up an automated prayer wall on our site to deal with requests for prayer from around the world that we receive on our social media platforms. If prayer did not work, people would not be praying. So we know that prayer works. God answers countless prayer requests daily. But if I ask a person, can you remember your testimony from 2021? They will tell me that they can't even remember what they had for dinner last night. Remarkable. Did you notice how easily everyone forgot COVID? The Spaniards used their ice rink to store bodies because their morgues were full. What about India? Half-burned, decomposed bodies floating on the Ganges, people unable to cremate their dead on the sacred river? Did you forget footage of Chinese police sealing people in their apartments or dragging infected people from their homes to quarantine? Or South Africa, where pastors were arrested for opening churches, or where churches offered their buildings to dispense vaccine to unsuspecting victims. Churches don't provide facilities for training, youth development, or sheltering the homeless, but make their buildings available to roll out government's vaccine mandates. Do you remember when the unvaxxed were told not to attend weddings, birthday parties, or work, and some grandparents were not allowed to visit their grandkids? Our memories are a funny thing. We don't remember big things and place great emphasis on trivial matters. Today we will explore various altars of remembrance, their significance, and why we should surround ourselves with tokens and emblems of remembrance to mark the significance of our journey through life's storms. Yesterday I was with my family and we went down memory lane talking about great times in our 20s. My sister-in-law said, I wish I had recorded those memories. At least I'd have proof that I was thin. We all laughed, but she was so fitting because we had no evidence of our journey. We look back and feel robbed because even though we lived through the most extraordinary times, we do not even have something to prove that we were there, that certain events transpired, or that we overcame them. This is precisely why setting up altars of remembrance is so important. We can look back at where we were and how God brought us here. Here in South Africa, we celebrate the Day of Reconciliation on December 16th. It used to be called the Day of the Vow, in Afrikaans, Geloftedag, a religious public holiday in South Africa. The Day of the Vow holds great significance for Afrikaners. Stemming from the Battle of Blood River on 16 December 1838, Before the battle, around 400 trekkers made a solemn vow to God. They pledged that if God delivered 464 Afrikaners from the attack of approximately 20,000 Zulu warriors, they would set aside that day as a sacred Sabbath in perpetual remembrance of how God saved them. The text of the vow used in 1938 reads as follows: "My brothers and fellow countrymen, here we stand, presently, on a moment before a holy God of heaven and earth, to make a promise to him that if he, in terms of his protection, be with us and give our enemy into our hands, that we will conquer them, that we then shall keep this day and date every year as an annual anniversary and a day of thanksgiving, like a Sabbath to his glory, and that we shall erect a temple to his honor whenever it should please him, and that we also will tell our children that they should share that with us in memory for future generations. For the honor of his name will be glorified by giving him the fame and honor of our victory." The Voortrekker Monument was erected in Pretoria to fulfill the Afrikaners' vow to God and to commemorate God's protection in challenging times. I'm unsure if the Afrikaners still remember how God delivered them, but let us look at the Hebrew people in the Bible. They experienced the miraculous like no other nation. They saw God do great exploits. Mighty men of faith led them, yet they quickly forgot and reverted to idolatry, disobedience, and immorality. The 10 plagues of Egypt led to their release from bondage. They saw the parting of the Red Sea and the defeat of Pharaoh's army. Yet they were making the golden calf and worshipping it in Exodus 32. Continuous rebellion and murmuring in the wilderness. In the books of Exodus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, even though God had provided for them miraculously, they were hungry. They complained. God gave them manna, a bread-like substance that came from heaven. He sent quail, little birds for them to eat. He fed them daily. When the Israelites were thirsty in the wilderness, God instructed Moses to strike a rock, and water gushed forth to quench their thirst in Exodus 17. In Exodus 13, God guided the Israelites through the wilderness with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, providing both shade and light. Exodus 17, when the Amalekites attacked the Israelites in the wilderness, God gave them to victory through Moses' raised hands. In 1 Samuel chapter 8, the Israelites rejected God's leadership and demanded a king like the surrounding nations. This request was seen as rejection of God as their ruler. In Numbers 16, Korah led a rebellion against the leadership of Moses and Aaron. Exodus 19 to 20 on Mount Sinai, God delivered the 10 Commandments and the law to Moses, establishing a covenant with the Israelites. Their lack of faith at the edge of Canaan in Numbers 13, the Israelite spies returned from exploring the promised land, and most of them lacked faith in God, leading to 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. Idolatry, immorality, and disobedience was a regular practice. We find this in the books of Joshua, Judges, Kings, and Jeremiah. Gideon's ephod and Micah's shrine are but a few examples. God, having done all these miraculous feats, did not stop the Israelites from disobedience. The Bible portrays how humanity frequently tends to overlook or disregard the role of God's guidance and protection in our lives. How can we avoid this from happening? In the Old Testament, we find that altars in the Bible hold significant spiritual and symbolic importance. Altars served several vital purposes, like worship and communion with God. They represented sacred space where people could offer prayers, sacrifice, and expressions of devotion. 2. Covenant and commitment. Altars were often used to make covenants or agreements with God. In the Bible, individuals like Abraham and Jacob built altars to mark significant moments of encounter with God and to symbolize their commitment to follow His guidance and will. 3. Atonement and forgiveness. The shedding of blood on the altar was seen as a means of atonement for sins and a way to seek forgiveness from God. 4. Remembrance. Altars were sometimes constructed as memorials to remember significant encounters or events with God. 5. Guidance in seeking God's will. Altars were used as places to seek advice from God. And 6. Thanksgiving and gratitude. Altars were also used to express gratitude to God for his blessings and provisions. Today, we will focus on the altars of remembrance, covenant, and commitment. There are several examples in the Bible of altars being constructed as memorials or remembrance altars to commemorate significant events or encounters with God. So here are a few notable examples. In Genesis chapter 35, verses 1 to 7, after Jacob had a profound encounter with God at Bethel, where God reaffirmed the covenant with him, Jacob set up a stone pillar as a memorial and poured a drink offering and oil on it. He called the place Bethel, which means house of God. In Joshua chapter 4, when the Israelites crossed the Jordan River into the promised land, Joshua instructed 12 men to take 12 stones from the riverbed and set them up as a memorial on the other side. These stones served as a reminder of God's miraculous parting of the river Jordan. In 1 Samuel 7, after a victory against the Philistines, Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen and called it Ebenezer, which means stone of help. This stone served as a reminder of God's help in their time of need. The Passover is a remembrance of the Exodus. The Feast of Unleavened Bread is closely associated with the Passover and lasts 7 days. During this time, unleavened bread is eaten to symbolize the haste with which the Israelites left Egypt, as they did not have time to let the bread rise. In Exodus 12, the Last Supper, where Jesus instituted the practice of Holy Communion, or the Eucharist, is remembered and reenacted in Christian worship services across the globe. The Holy Communion is symbolic of Jesus' blood and his body. We do this in remembrance of Christ's sacrifice. Let's examine our lives. Do you have an item in your home that reminds you of a happy memory? What about a sad memory? I'm sure you do. What about a song, a scent, or a meal that makes you nostalgic? I was at a family event and my cousin had a full sleeve tattoo on his left arm. We were admiring the design. He went on to tell us that although his tattoo looks like a complete design, pictures and dates represented vital moments in his life, like his daughter's face, birth times, and significant dates like marriage and births. He explained the importance for him to mark these life events. Today, I want you to take a moment to reflect on your life and pinpoint some of your most significant victories or mistakes. Write them down and work through the process of each event. Look for the hand of God in the situation. Identify the lesson, the biblical principle, and Satan's strategy and objective for your life. Look at your testimony and think of a way to remember this victory, covenant, or lesson. I want you to go to a store and buy an item to set up as a remembrance stone. You are free to make one. Get your kids to assist you. When you look at this marker, it must remind you of God's hand in your life. My little one suggested that a good idea would be to get a wooden cross, write down what God has done for you, and put it on the cross. You can also use pictures to represent what you have been through. You can set up a timeline blog or a video journal. An online photo diary is also a great way to depict victories. You can use Facebook to document your journey each year. It will show up as a memory. Ensure two-step verification on your social media accounts to avoid hacking or data loss. I buy items to display in my office and home, which are significant to my journey. I also document milestones reached annually, print them out and frame them to look at it in the new year. Have you ever considered that everything you have prayed for you have now? How amazing is that? It is easy to forget how desperate we were until God entered our situation and changed it for the better. At your next challenge or tribulation, we are quick to forget. Therefore, the significance of establishing a memorial marker or stone is to encourage you for future battles. It serves as a symbol reminding you of how God guided you through previous challenges, reinforcing the idea that God is by your side. Moreover, it proves invaluable when sharing your testimony with family and friends. I want to conclude with this. As followers of Christ, many Christians' life goals are to go to Israel and walk where Jesus walked. The Via Dolorosa is a Latin word that means way of suffering. It is the route that Jesus took on his way to the crucifixion. Many Christians merge at the site on Good Friday to walk this route. This route has 14 stations that mark Jesus' journey. This journey is profoundly emotional for Christians, often marked by tears and a somber atmosphere. The series of 14 stations currently commemorates the 14 following episodes. 1. The place where Jesus was condemned to death. 2. Jesus is made to bear his cross. 3. Jesus falls for the first time. 4. Jesus meets his mother. 5. Simon of Cyrene is made to bear the cross with Jesus. 6. Veronica wipes Jesus' face. 7. Jesus falls for the second time. 8. The women of Jerusalem weep over Jesus. 9. Jesus falls for the third time. 10. Jesus is stripped of his garments. 11. Jesus is nailed to the cross. 12. Jesus dies on the cross. 13. Jesus is taken down from the cross. And 14. Jesus is placed in the tomb. Can you envision the profound impact traversing or walking the Via Dolorosa will have on you? The idea that these 14 markers exist is remarkable because it increases our faith, connects us to our Savior, and establishes the gospel account of the crucifixion as truth. All this without having walked the Via Dolorosa yourself. It is an excellent example of altars of remembrance. These memorial markers, the 14 stations, serving as a constant reminder of the sacrifice Jesus made for us. These 14 stations were established by someone, and through them, we can deeply connect with Jesus' journey on the day of his crucifixion, his rejection, his shame, and heartbreak. I strongly urge you to document your journey, as it will become a testament to the sacrifices you've made, a display of your faith, and a testament to God's ability to accomplish the impossible in your life. To reiterate, I want you to reflect on your life and pinpoint some of your most significant challenges and victories. Write them down. Look for the hand of God in the situation. Identify the lesson, the biblical principle, and the enemy's strategy and objective for your life. Look for an object or item by which you can remember this victory or testimony. You can go to a store and buy an item or make a memory marker that will serve as your altar of remembrance. Get your family to assist you. Use this task to teach your kids a valuable lesson or encourage those around you. Feel free to share your testimonies or the story behind your altar of remembrance, and we look forward to receiving your feedback. May you be continually blessed. Follow us on our social media platforms, send us your prayer requests, and remember that we love you and we are praying for you. May God bless you and stay in faith.